Welcome to Alt Lave, a spin-off show from the crew of the Orange Sidewinder, where we cover a range of topics including video games, movies, TV shows, fiction, and indeed anything else we believe is worthy of an episode. Your hosts for this episode are...
I'm Chris Jarvis, writer, producer of Escape Velocity and host of Lave Radio.
I'm Ben Moss Woodward and I don't do anything creative.
And I am Fozzer Forrester. Okay. Slightly different show today. What we've got for our inaugural show is we've decided we're going to jump straight into a new alpha build of a game that's coming out later this year from Frontier Developments. That game is going to be Planet Coaster, a roller coaster theme park simulator sandbox game which is scheduled to be released later this year. Planet Coaster will be Frontier's second AAA game which they are planning on self-publishing after the ever so successful Elite Dangerous. To say the company has a proud history of roller coaster sims would be a massive understatement, as they have created Roller Coaster Tycoon for the Xbox, Roller Coaster 2 for the PC in terms of the expansion packs, and also Roller Coaster 3 for the PC, and of course Coaster Crazy for the mobile platform. Many of the devs currently working on the game have previously worked on Frontier's roller coaster back catalogue. In fact, Johnny Watts, the current Chief Creative Officer, started his career at Frontier working on the expansion packs for Roller Coaster Tycoon. That would be Wacky World and Time Twister. He is now the overseer of the PC project, and it's clear that he has lost none of his enthusiasm for this genre. So the format of this first show is going to be a sort of a let's play, first impressions type thing of the alpha build. Jarvis will be running the game through live on Twitch, and we'll be doing our best to answer any questions we've got as we go along, either from myself or from Ben or other folks in the chat room. If you're listening to this as an audio-only podcast, then make sure you check out the video on twitch.tv/Lave Radio when you get the chance. And Ben and I will do our best to describe the action as we go through. Okay, so let's start talking about the game. Jarvis, how'd you get into the game?
Yeah, I haven't actually fired it up just at the moment because what I wanted to do is just share this particular screen. Now, this is for the Planet Coaster Alpha. Frontier have provided us with a new launcher for the software. Now, it's quite apparent from this early stage that it is designed to be a comprehensive launcher for all of Frontier's games. So at the moment you can see there is a Planet Coaster tab and there is an Elite Dangerous Horizons tab that you can also click on. And it's interesting that they're kind of, once Planet Coaster goes on, they're going to try and unify that launcher. And so presumably, Elite Dangerous will be getting a new launcher as well with these things on. And I have to say, visually, I mean, for those of people listening to it in audio, it sort of reminds me a bit of Origin. And I haven't used Origin in a long time, so I might be talking about a really old version of Origin. And I'm not sure the association is particularly good in my mind.
Either.
But it's nice. I mean, it's quite a pretty. It's quite nicely designed. It's quite a square at the moment, and it obviously is moving, over to that kind of Steam thing of having your own sort of unified launcher. So I just wanted to start just by putting that out there because I think it's quite an interesting development that Frontier are moving over to this, and that it's interesting that Planet Coaster not only as an alpha in itself is actually forming a test bed for this new Launchpad beta. They're obviously getting as much testing in as they possibly can during the next 6 months. So I don't know, I presume you guys have had a chance to catch up with the video and have any thoughts?
I have actual slightly concerns about the launcher because it's basically installing everything into your home directory. So it wants to go into like C:users, username, then local app data, and it's going in there rather than into the actual program files, which is where, in my opinion, installation should go to. I don't like it going into this semi-hidden program, semi-hidden local stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's what they did with Elite Dangerous as well. And I remember feeling a little bit kind of frustrated at one point. I seemed to be I was trying to clear down my hard drive when I moved over to a solid state. And I suddenly realised I had like 10 gigs worth of stuff in the Frontier folder. And it was because I had 4 different installations of Elite Dangerous, all under my local user. And obviously, you know, one of them's Elite Dangerous, one of them's the Elite Dangerous beta, one of them I think was the Horizons beta. And I think it was just, you know, it's like, at least clear up after yourselves.
Yeah, but I don't think that that didn't stay when it went to full release, did it? So it started installing in correct places after it went to after it went out of alpha and beta. I think it started putting it where everybody would actually like it to be put. So maybe this is just an alpha beta thing where they're putting it in the wrong directories.
Maybe.
So. But yeah, so let's. I'm going to click on play, and we can all have a look at the way the game starts up. Just because there is this quite nice little opening thing, and there is also something that I want to talk about that's kind of in the opening of the game. So let's. So apologies, it's not fitting to screen very well. So here's the game. Presumably you can all hear the music. Let me just turn that down a little bit for you guys. Quite nice music for it though. It kind of reminds me of the music they had on the launch trailer, which was by that American folk / country band whose name is it Lady Antebellum or something like that? No, blank stares all around. Okay, well there was a song on the launch trailer, and this kind of reminds me a bit of that. Let me just bring it up for a moment. So there you go, that's nice. Apologies, I'm going to try and fix what's going on with OBS because it doesn't seem to be capturing this game at quite the right resolution. I don't know quite why. So yeah, it was nice that little Pixar-y opening with the kind of the Coaster King coming through and crashing through the side. I just want to go back to this image though, which I've now lost. Where's it gone? Here we go. Yeah, I just want to talk about this for a moment because I think this is really fascinating that when you launch Planet Coaster, this screen comes up that says powered by Cobra, and it sort of puts me in mind of you know, where things come up and say things like powered by Unreal or powered by, you know, Bink Video. And I'm wondering if, having not done it before, Frontier are starting to think seriously about licensing their engine out to other developers. Because, you know, there's not really much point putting a splash screen up on the beginning of your game that says powered by Cobra, unless that is going to mean something to somebody else. I mean, other than the fact they're just proud of their engine and maybe just want to, you know, kind of advertise it in that way. But it strikes me that you know, that they're doing this, and it's kind of a thing to say, well, you know, watch this space. We might actually be licensing out our tech to other developers.
Do we know that they haven't already done that? Because I do have a feeling that they might have already done that with some of the smaller projects, or maybe some of the mobile devices. I have a feeling I've seen powered by Cobra, not often, but I think I've seen it before. Okay.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that image before. I think maybe it was on the... was it originally on the Elite Dangerous beta?
Maybe. It might have even been on the Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 game. Maybe that's where I think I've seen it before. Obviously, which they obviously made for Atari.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's where I've seen it, or potentially also there was a mobile game. What's it called? Well, Lost Winds, but obviously that was their game. But they also did another one recently, which was sort of like a side-scrolling platformer game, and I think it was on there as well, which they did again for another company. Which I'm pretty sure I've seen that logo on that game as well.
Yeah, I don't honestly. I don't remember seeing it on Lost Winds. I played both of those, and I don't recall seeing it.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, yeah, the one thing about going as a self-publisher and everything else, and seeing all the finances that we are now with Frontier, yeah, anything this company can do to create revenue and, you know, get other sources of money coming into the company is a good thing. So considering how powerful the Cobra engine is and how they can prove that with Elite Dangerous and with Planet Coaster, why wouldn't you want to license that technology out?
Oh no, absolutely.
Playing devil's advocate, but maybe you wouldn't want to because when you license it out, that involves a heck of a lot of extra support for folk.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe
It does.
just devil's advocate.
Yeah, I mean, it does create a situation for you where you have to make your tools pretty for a kind of third party to really get their heads around. But I think, potentially the revenue could be well worth dedicating a bit of resource to. And plus as well, if you're kind of having to keep your development tools nice for other people, then actually it kind of makes it, it makes you tidy your own house up as well, if you know what I mean.
And wouldn't that be a nice thing at times?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's like, one of the things that's good about inviting friends around really often is that you end up keeping your house actually in a reasonably tidy state. Whereas if no one comes around for a month, the place just goes to rack and ruin. It does in our house anyway.
Okay, so you've landed on the splash screen, you've landed on the Planet Coaster screen, and maybe this will be a good opportunity to actually talk about one of the key selling features of this new game, and that aspect of it not just being your park, but this whole element of sort of sharing your park and everything that you do in your park around your friends and families and friends of friends all across the globe, and having this big planet of community around this game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had another thought the other day. I didn't realise that the new roller coaster tycoon game was called Roller Coaster Tycoon World, and I didn't know if the whole world planet thing was a bit of a sort of a direct competition thing. But yeah, no, it is very much. I think I'm assuming that this sort of planet here is going to be a sort of holding place for user-generated content, because they've been talking a lot on their own streams about UGC and how you'll be able to share your park and you'll be able to share specific things. You'll see when we get, for those of you that haven't really seen much about Planet Coaster, you'll see once we get into the game just how small detail you can go into when building stuff, but it means that actually constructing larger objects wholesale and saying this is a prefab thing I've made that you can now use, I think is going to be a huge part of Planet Coaster. So presumably there are going to be options on the game to see kind of parks from around the world. Obviously your park must be saved to the cloud or something like that, and presumably eventually I'm guessing this Earth will rotate. I can't get it to do that at the moment. I'm also assuming that Frontier's developers who've created these test parks don't live in these places. I think they're quite clear on their recruiting page that everyone has to work in Cambridge. So I don't think Siberia or wherever this one up here is.
Well, there's one there that's actually floating out in the middle of the Atlantic as well. So hopefully they haven't dropped someone off in the middle of the sea. So yeah, possibly not exactly true to life, but what they're talking about is this this fully integrated community hub. So straight from the blurb on the back of the box, it says community is at the heart of Planet Coaster. Share your creativity with connected global villages of coaster fans. Trade scenery, roller coasters, and even entire parks, and download the world's wildest creations from the fully integrated community hub. So obviously, as they say, community is going to be at the core of it. And looking at some of the live streams that Frontier have already done, I'm not the world's most creative person when it comes to sort of making scenery and stuff. So the idea of being able to sort of take the latest and greatest or the highest voted, rated bit of scenery to add to my park, as a sort of off-the-shelf product, I think is a cracking idea.
Well, I'm not the most creative person either, as I said in my intro, but if at some point Chris can have a look at my park that I've shared with him, then I'm quite proud of the toilet block that I made.
Excellent. I mean, it's funny when I've put in the show notes when I was doing a little bit of research around this. They've called it Planet Coaster, but it's very reminiscent of Little Big Planet. So maybe we should be calling this Little Big Coaster instead. I love the idea of all this user-generated content, and maybe they can get Stephen Fry to actually do the intro talk over or the tutorial bits just to link the two. I think that would be quite a nice little touch.
I don't just want to copy it though, but I think going back to what you were saying about how you don't feel like you're the most creative person in the world, one of the things I want to show tonight actually is what a great job they've done of making the building tools really easy to use. So actually, even if you're not like massively creative, you can actually create some really amazing effects very quickly. And with that in mind, I'm actually going to be really boring. What you've got in the alpha is you've got all these different save places around this planet Earth, and they're all different. Most of them are different pre-built parks that you can go in and have a look at and play with. I'm going to open the really boring one. This is a huge flat plane with absolutely nothing in it, and we're going to completely start from scratch and just see what we can put together tonight. Just really doing stuff completely from scratch. So I'm going to load up this basic park, and it's at the moment you can't deform the landscape. I apologise, it is meant to be a first look. I did have a quick look at this yesterday so that I knew vaguely what I was doing. But this park you can play with is a completely square, flattened off area that you can build in. And there is not currently any tools active within the game that allows you to deform the landscape. Now, Frontier have talked about there being 3 stages of this alpha, and I think deforming the landscape might be stage 2. I think that might be what they said. But this is you'll see when we get into it, this is a pretty big area to fill. I'm going to resist the urge tonight to demonstrate the problem that Frontier are going to have with sharing user-generated content by using the pathing system to just draw a massive cock in the middle of this field. But I will say though, right, that given that if I just make this a bit longer, so given the way these paths kind of move and bend, you'll see this on the video, that they kind of flop about in an appealing way. You can imagine how easy it is going to be for people to just make massive cock paths. So we're going to take the higher ground. We're not going to be doing that tonight. But that's just one of those things about user generated content. It's like, well, if someone downloads something that they're massively offended by, who's really kind of to blame for that? But anyway, and I'm just going to activate this little thing we've got here. This is the worst kept secret in the world, but basically there's a little cheat code you can type in called under construction, which pleasantly reminds me of the old manic miner days of typing in codes and things like that. Basically, I've just unlocked the roller coasters tab, because apparently Frontier weren't going to include roller coasters in the first stage of the alpha, but I think the feedback they'd got from people is that what they'd already done on it was so good and so mostly robust that they wanted people to be able to see it and use it.
Yeah, definitely. And they found out from the press event, didn't they, that they had down in London, and actually once they saw people interacting with the roller coasters and building the coasters, it was so close to, well, as you say, it was robust enough that anybody could just sort of pick it up and play with it. So why not throw it out there? And this is one of the things. And Chris, you and I have both met Johnny Watts, who's obviously the guy in charge of overseeing the project, and he's just so passionate about this being a fantastic game. He's so passionate about people wanting people to go out there and just sort of enjoy playing this game that I think he basically overruled everybody and said, it's there, it's ready, it's good enough. Let's just make sure let's just throw it out there and let people enjoy it. So interesting what you were saying about the first stage. So looking at the information they're giving out, the first stage is all about pathing, anyway, the pathways. So unlike a lot of roller coaster simulators, what you were talking about, drawing a big penis, that only comes about because you can get these lovely curves, which previously in all the other roller coaster tycoons, it's always been very much sort of on a very rigid grid system. They've got away with that, and started all these lovely sort of completely user creatable paths that can curve around and go in every single direction that you want, which should add to a whole host of new features or creativity or different ways to build a path.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's really interesting as well. I mean, just how quickly you get people walking around your path and around your park and finding their way, and really just the sort of intelligence at work in these park guests is amazing. So to avoid the stream being really boring, I'm going to start building some stuff. So there's with this path thing, there actually, I mean, this is this game gives you control over everything in really like minuscule detail. So much so here that you've actually got on the path tool, you can specify what the length of each bit your building wants to be. That's quite useful if you're trying to make like a fiddly little path that kind of joins up like to a ride, or if you want to cover ground in your park really quickly, you can set the length to 5, and you can sort of cover, you can go huge distances in like hardly any time. There we go. I've already sort of blasted along there.
We've also got some cheat commands in there as well, which I think are a bit sneaky ones. Apparently, if you press the square brackets, that will change something, and the plus and minus buttons do things.
Okay.
So these are keyboard shortcuts as opposed to cheats?
Yeah. Plus and minus. Yeah. Plus and minus changes the length for you. I'm guessing square brackets extends your girth. So there we go.
I think
you can go from a very tiny path.
Yes.
So you can go from a 4-meter wide path all the way up to a 10-meter wide path. And yeah, and I have to say, I'm going to look at some of these other controls as well over the course of the stream, because one of the things I've been slightly struggling with so far in this alpha is understanding how the camera rotates and how you actually move around. Because every now and again I just end up with a situation where I try and rotate around the object I'm editing and I end up over the other side of the park. And I don't know whether that's just an alpha bug or whether that's just me using it completely wrong. But anyway, so here we are. Let's start off just by building something. Do you know what? People want to see roller coaster. Should we just build a roller coaster in the middle of the park and then join it up? Let's just do that. So let's start off with this blue thing. So you start off. I'm just going to stick it in the middle of the park, and then we can kind of build paths up to it and kind of decorate it and make it nice. So you start off by sort of plonking your station down. I think everything you position in this game, if you click and hold down left button, you can specify the height of it.
Oh, okay, so you can build it up on stands and pillars as opposed to...
Yeah, absolutely. I think I might be wrong in this instance, though, because I don't
It's the
seem
shift
to...
key, I think it is. Shift key lets you move it in the Z-axis.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Nice.
And the
real-time
Z
shadows
key... If you tap the Z
Yes.
key, then it'll rotate at 90 degrees.
Yes.
But if you hold the Z key down, then you get a little circle with an arrow in front of it.
Yes.
And then you can rotate it on a freeform basis.
Yes, exactly. So let's start off with this coaster station high up in the air, just to make that opening chain lift a little bit shorter. Do you know what I really should have done? I should have kept the first coaster I made, because one of the things this game will teach you is how roller coasters work. I built this wonderfully intricate coaster track yesterday, and then I set a train off on it, and it bimbled around the first corner and then just stopped, because it doesn't. It's not like this magic track that your coaster train goes round. It's basically, you have to understand the physics of how roller coasters work. And they've simplified it to a huge degree, but basically I think what I figured out is if your drop isn't at least higher than your loop, the train won't make it all the way around the loop. And that's just basic physics.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you've got to give the thing enough potential energy. There are some other things that kind of help with it, but I confess I don't fully understand them. So this is the tool we've got for positioning the track. We've basically got one little control here that for each section grabs it and pulls it left and right. You've then got another one above it which gives you up and down, and then you've got this yaw control which allows you to twist the track. So if you're into kind of making corkscrews and barrel rolls manually, this gives you all the controls that you could ask for. And the other thing that's interesting about this interface is that when you set the angle, it doesn't just set it for that last piece and then carry on straight. Once you click, it kind of continues and honours the curve you've already established.
Which is great, isn't it? Because one of the things about the old roller coaster tycoons and stuff, it was literally section by section by section. Whereas this, it's almost like painting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm not going to do what Ben did. I think Ben created a lift that went all the way to the maximum height of the sandbox and took 1.5 minutes to get pulled up by chain. I'm not going to do that. We're going to give ourselves quite a modest little start here. So I've built a little. So it's completely straight. It just goes up at the maximum angle we can go to. which will hopefully give our coaster enough momentum to kind of do the rest of the ride. So let's...
Just a bit of a quick hint, Chris. Before you start adding too many on, make sure that you got your chain button pressed so that you add the chain to it. Otherwise, you'll have to go and edit everyone manually.
Yeah, you can go back and do it. I'll edit it manually. Because one of the things I quite like about this that we'll come to is I quite like watching the train go round the track incomplete and then actually see where the bugs are that need fixing. Because what I ended up with, quite by accident, was a loop the loop, which was absolutely terrifying because the train almost stops at the top of the loop every time. And I think in an actual coaster that would be brilliant. So I'm gonna leave that in because I'm a bastard. Right, so let's...
I take it there's no sort of death on these coasters. I know, Chris, when we went down to Frontier, we asked him about, given the stuff that happened at Alton Towers, was there any sort of thing that they had to sort of rein back in terms of having coasters fly off the tracks and things like that? What currently happens in the alpha build if your coaster doesn't work, or as you say, if it stops at the top of a loop-de-loop and falls?
I think they've actually... They were talking on their own stream yesterday about how they've constricted slightly some of the choices. So even though it's a very manual and very specific thing you can do, they've actually created the angles and things you can create on the coaster have been done in such a way that you almost can't help but create a kind of nice ride. And they've also down here got this little thing, this smoothing button, which if you've got any sort of jaggies on your coaster can really sort of fix that.
I did manage to make a coaster where basically my train got stuck in a valley, so they could never escape basically. But thankfully, when you turn your ride off, the train magically disappears and all your guests teleport to the exit.
Excellent. So they got rescued, in other words.
They got rescued. Yeah, we'll pretend that.
Yeah.
Millstone Barn is asking, is it hard placing your pieces, just generally sort of your entrances and your stations? Does that all feel very fluid, or?
Yeah, we'll come to that. The problems I had this one problem when I was editing. I actually lost my station, and trying to re-add the station to the track was very, very hard. As I say, the other problem I'm mostly having, if you're watching the stream, I'm trying to currently rotate the camera around this object I'm editing, and I have no idea what this camera has decided to focus on, but it's making it really hard for me to see kind of where I'm meant to be or what I'm doing.
I find the middle one to be the easiest for that kind of thing, Chris.
Yes, turns out I was on free camera, so you don't want free camera. Let's see. I've got quite a drop here that then goes into a sort of twist, and you can actually add some quick loops here. So let's see what happens if I click on that. Oh no, didn't want that. Let's try. What's a Norwegian loop? Okay, that takes it under the ground. Let's not do that. Let's just try a normal loop. There we go.
So just for the benefit of people that aren't watching the stream, these are separate sort of sections of roller coaster, like pre-built sections that you can literally just go in and drop in. So
if you just want
various different types of loops and stuff.
If you just want a loop, it's like a prefab. And as you can see, even while we're editing, we're in a real-time day-night cycle here. So we have a rather pretty sunset going on. Let me just figure out. Okay, so that's gone all the way around. Oh, do you know what we can do? We can do a nice little thing here. So I've, for those listening in audio, I've jinked the track to the left. I'm bringing it round in a loop, and I'm now going to send it. Because it's one of the things that's nice about this game, with it being such a free-form editor, is you can actually completely overlap stuff. So I'm now going to send this track through the supports of the piece of track that I've just built. And that's something that you just can't do in roller coaster games that give you a sort of more blocky sort of approach to these things. So let's send that.
Can you do that in real life?
What, send a coaster through
its own
Send
supports?
a coaster through its own supports?
Yeah, of course you
can.
can.
Health and safety thing?
No, think about Alton Towers. Think about, is it Nemesis in Alton Towers, where you overlap yourself and go through and down into the gully and underneath the tracks and stuff.
Okay.
But what I really like is the fact that the game just basically just sorts this out for you.
Yeah,
you know, if you want to go through the legs of your coasters, then it will magically just do that all automatically for you.
Yeah, and you
It
can
will
see
move the
it's kind
struts
of
around and
it moves
restructure
them as you
everything.
go, which is nice. So that's a crazy little spiral I've created there. And let's say at the bottom of this, let's just stick in a loop. Well, I'll be very interested to see if the train still has enough momentum to actually go through that loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit boring, and I'm just going to finish this track. Oops. If you don't turn the loop off, it's what you get every time you click. I'm just going to finish this track kind of as quickly as we can, just so that we can move on to something else. So this is probably going to require another lift chain. There we go. Bring it down.
So just while you do that, obviously,
Loop.
again, talking about the first alpha, it's all about sort of generating paths. And I think what Frontier said they were trying to do is just make sure that the simulation works in terms of getting all the crowds of people through, because every single person that comes through your crowd is an individual. Everybody has a certain amount of money in their pockets. They need to be able to get to all the rides in order for you to actually be able to get any of the money out of their pockets and into your coffers. So I think they were calling that first principles, and that is basically what they've designed the game on, so that you need to be able to make sure that all these path structures work, regardless of whether or not you've got 5 people in your park, 500 or 5,000. So starting off with the whole path system and making sure that works in terms of the simulation is actually one of the things they wanted to make sure they nailed straight away. And then, as you say, the second part of alpha is going to be transformation, and I think the third part of alpha they said was going to be simulation in terms of all the finance stuff, so all the shops and all the tweaks to add more salt to make people thirsty and buy more beer and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually run into my first problem here on the on this coaster editing. I tried to join my track up to the station, and for some reason I lost a bit of track, and I now there we go, I seem to have refound it now. For some reason I wasn't able to continue building track, and I wasn't totally sure why. But hopefully now, if I click here, it might stand a chance of joining up. I'm actually not 100% sure what the science of joining. I think that's just auto-joined, which is quite a nice touch. And what I'm going to do, because this isn't entirely nonsensical... Oops-a-daisy. Has that now? I think that's joined up now. I'm just going to lower this section of track here. So you can see, you can just click on a stretch of track and you can just go back and sort of edit in a nice sort of aftertouch what you've done. And hopefully the smooth button, yay, will fix that little bit of rubbish that I'd introduced.
it's crazy simple. Crazy simple.
Isn't it really, really simple? So what you've now got in your with your roller coaster editing, if I come out of edit in some way that doesn't break it, let's try clicking on this close gadget. There you go. So we've now got this coaster ride that I'm now not editing. You can now click back on the station and it brings up a little menu and it says ride status incomplete. To open this ride you need to place an entrance, place an exit, add a queue to the entrance and add a ticket booth to the queue. And there's also some debug options. What we can now do is we can add a train. And there you go, you can see there's a little train appeared on the track. And there's actually, if I remove that train, for these particular tracks, there's a choice of 4 trains that you can add. This one's a bit of a kind of classic, I'd say a classic 1970s American coaster. I don't know if that's a fair description, but that's what it looks like to me. We've also got Rage, which I actually haven't looked at. That's a sort of, I guess a sort of spacey themed thing. And then this one, which puts me very much in mind of modern roller coasters, this one here, which is very much an upright seat and the kind of the sort of shoulder harnesses like that, so you're very much kind of free on the thing. Let's stick with that one. I have actually noticed playing around with the alpha, I think all the cars are actually weighted slightly differently, so you might set up your track perfectly for one type of train, you might change it to different cars and actually find it doesn't work anymore because the mass is different.
Interesting.
What's Ben telling me? Ben likes the werewolf too. So you could have said that, Ben. You don't have to message me with that. So
I'm not allowed to talk over people.
I know.
You just shut up.
Oh, that's fine. So I've clicked on start. So this gives you the opportunity to see your train moving, and you will see it has not gone very far. It has basically moved about 5 meters off the track and then just rolled back to the start. And this is because my first stretch does not have a lift chain on it. Now, if you've been stupid like me and forgotten to add the chain, it's very easy to do. If I click on Edit Track, it deletes any trains you currently have on the track. And I should say, if you do that while you've got passengers in your park, they will just teleport to the exit. So I'm now going to click on... So if I've got a section of track highlighted, if I now just click on Chain Lift, it retrospectively applies the train chain to that section of track. So that's really easy. So this is basically going to need... This is going to need chain all the way up. Now, how do I move up and down? Oh, if I use that...
I just had to click on each piece of track and then click the chain.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to work out how to move. I'm trying to work out how to move the camera up and down, because at the moment Q and E are rotating.
You're not in the middle one again. Stick in the middle.
No,
one.
I am on the middle one. I am on the middle one.
Okay.
But it's weird when I've been playing this game. Sometimes Q and E do rotate, and sometimes they do up and down, and I could not tell you. I could not tell you what is making the difference. So anyway, let's stick. So is that chain lift? Let's see if that chain lift is enough. So I quite like, this is the thing, I like doing it this way. I like testing my ride piecemeal. So I'm going to add a train, I'm going to start it, and I'm going to see if that's enough chain to get the train all the way to the top of that hill. Because if it isn't, I need to just put a little bit more on the top. But I don't want to over-engineer it. So while that's just going, so we'll get a little view here of whether or not how much of this track actually works. Oh, that's a terrifying moment. So this is now completely in the hands of physics. God, that looks absolutely terrifying.
So can you just describe what the track is for those people that can't see it? You've got a massive section going straight up.
Yeah, this is going to be quite hard. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in and edit the track because the train actually travels so fast. I'm feeling the need to put some brakes at the end. I just feel sorry for the people on it. So what I've created is probably let's say a 60-story vertical climb. Then at the top of the climb, the train plummets down at the steepest angle I could make, and as it goes to the bottom, the track tilts to the left and does a kind of corkscrew round between its own struts twice, then comes back up for a loop-the-loop, then goes up over a hump, and then just kind of does a hairpin round back to the station.
Very abruptly back to the station as well. Looking at that train when it arrived back at the station, there's some serious braking going on when it gets back to the landing pad.
Yeah, let's just see what difference. So I've added a section of brakes now to the to the end of this. I have to say this is not a long ride. They are going to be done with it quite quickly. So let's just send this round again. So while this is doing its thing, Ben.
Right. Johnny's saying if you press the T button and then Q&E rotates and maybe zooms in and out as well. So I guess it sounds like the T is maybe toggling it or something.
Okay.
But I don't know this. This is just what Johnny Axe is saying in the stream.
Okay. I mean, it might be, because I've been kind of playing around and hitting various random keys on the keyboard to try and figure out all the different things in the game. So it might be that I've accidentally pressed T at some point, and that's where I've got these different controls. So let's just try that. He's quite right. T changes it from rotate to up and down. That's very useful. Thank you very much, Johnny Axe. Okay, so this ride currently can't open. So we need to place an entrance. So let's say the entrance is going to be... see, the clever designers at Frontier would say to you, you haven't allowed enough room to make your train station pretty, because I'm going to need to build around this in a minute. But let's put the entrance this side. Oh no, let's put it...
Yeah, just interestingly though, Jarvis, you are what, 3 stories up in the air for your station? So
Yep.
What sort of features are you going to have to put in there in order to get people up there?
Absolutely no idea. Genuinely no idea. This is a first look. I'm making this up completely as I go along. So I just thought the one I built yesterday was all completely flattened on the ground. So I just thought this time let's just try sticking it up in the air and seeing what I have to do. So I'm going to place the entrance right by the coaster. Is that sensible? Yeah. And I'm going to place the exit on the other side. And as you can see, I mean, this is made really easy for you because it just completely snaps the gate that you're attaching to the train station to one edge, and you just pick where you want it and place it. And that's it, it's done. So you now have the option to add a queue to the entrance. So this gives you a thing that's very similar to the path controls, basically. Again, we can set length here. We can make another amusing floppy shape here, and let's see if I'm just trying to work out how you use the shift control to change the height. So let's just try keeping it short for the minute. So let's make
on this one, if you don't do the shift control, but I think if you just press and hold your left mouse button and move your mouse up and down, that wiggles it.
Yes, if I just hold it, I can sort of set. Yes, I can set it to basically. So we should be now.
Yourself up and down.
We are now on ground level. So there we go.
Cool.
So I'm gonna stop building that there because what I now want to do is add the ticket booth. So the ticket booth gives you a nice little prefab thing. The member of staff who takes the tickets is already there when you haven't even placed it. And what's interesting is there is a definite, one-way system, because I think if you turn it round, it now no longer attaches. So you end up with this kind of, for those listening, a sort of metal girder construction that is a sort of the entrance to the ride. So let's pop that down. So this ride is now technically open. And now that we've opened our first ride, we might start to see bodies milling in from the entrance.
So do you have to actually connect that ride to a existing path that connects to the entrance, or will they walk across the grass?
No. You need to create a path, and I suspect that's why people have not yet appeared. So I'm now going to create. There you go. So in fact, with the length set to 5, I'm actually able to connect this path all the way from the entrance of the park to that ride just in one section. I don't even have to fiddle it, which is interesting. So there you go. So I've now connected that. Let's see.
And also looking at that entrance, that metal sort of entrance that you've created there, I think all the entrances that Frontier put in the game have all sort of been set up to allow you to stick a sign on them. So if you want to have a look at the various sort of sceneries and signs, you can put one and attach it directly to your coaster.
Oh yes, I've just realised the other thing I haven't done is I haven't actually attached the exit to anywhere. That would be helpful, and that would be embarrassing. So let's, interesting. Debug.
You have made the Hotel California of roller coasters. That's what you've done.
I have. You are condemned to ride it for all time, and I'm hoping I haven't created a situation where it's actually impossible to place. I did this the other day. I placed the entrance in a place where you couldn't actually lay any path. So let's just do this.
I have to laugh because I'm mostly looking at our chat channel that you can't see, and about 5 minutes ago Ben actually put a reminder in there for you to actually put an exit down. So Ben's currently quietly smiling smugly to himself there.
Okay, so let's just there we go. And then this can loop round. Right. So now look, there's people. There's people in the park. So inevitably at this point, all the dinosaurs are going to escape and everyone's going to die. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how these things work.
Game. So you're saying that somewhere on this entrance. Now, interestingly enough, you're saying that this gate can be decorated with signs. Having had a bit of a play with the kind of objects that are available in the game, that entrance has been entirely decorated with objects that you can place. So I think they have pre-decorated this gate. If we bring up scenery and bring up signs and bring up...
Sorry, I wasn't talking about the gate. I was talking about the entrance to your roller coaster.
Oh, yeah, totally, yeah. But you can see here, if I hold this object up, this Planet Coaster object that I've just picked up is exactly the same as the Planet Coaster object over the gate. Sorry, so yeah, it doesn't look like I can place anything out in this gate area, so that might be considered out of play anyway. So let's see if there is a suitable sign for our roller coaster. What should we call it?
There is a dotted line on the ground, Jarvis, which is basically your play boundary, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So here's some people. Here's some people. And what we can do is you can actually click on a person, and it comes up with a little box that says guest management, and you can click on a ride camera icon and you can follow that person. But what you can do already is you can click on first person and you can actually attach your camera to that NPC's head, and basically this is how we will experience the ride. So I'm just going to leave this going. Apologies if anyone is watching this Twitch stream. Why are people turning around and leaving my ride? Do you know what I've
Probably because
forgotten?
they're scared.
No, do you know what I've forgotten to do? Oh no, it's there. Interesting. So I've clearly done something wrong.
You haven't put a sign on it, so nobody knows what roller coaster's called. So if they don't know what it's called, they're not going on it.
No.
Oh, hold on.
No. Is it because?
Is it still in debug? Have you got trains on there? Have you opened the exit?
I've opened it and I've turned it off and on again. Oh look, and we've got the mascots appeared in the park. So this is the Coaster King, or whatever he's called. He's walking around entertaining the crowds. These people think he's hilarious.
Interesting.
Oh no, people are going up.
Just to spend a little bit of time on the actual people, it's amazing to see the sort of dynamics of the people in the park. So you've got some obvious groups which are huddling together that are obviously the same sort of group. Sort of family units. You've got couples there who are obviously together. You've got some solo guys who are just obviously going around on their own. But whereas previously you didn't really sort of get those group dynamics, this time round it's much more sort of key to sort of akin to real life. The way that they're modelling it out. And I really think that's quite a nice touch.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring the sound in, so that we can all enjoy this with sound. Hopefully the sound is coming through to the Twitch. So we're not sitting at the front. Let me see if I can find someone I can click on that's nearer the front.
Chris, you can go to the rides debug cam as well, mate.
Yes, you're quite right. Here we go. So apologies if anyone is motion sick. I imagine this ride is going to be absolutely horrible. There you go.
So just while we watch that, Jarvis, what are the options for cameras around the
park? What we've basically got is, oh my god! Do you know what? I'm quite impressed with that. That's pretty good. There we go. Short and sweet. God, it decelerates a bit heavy. So the options you've got for camera is a cinematic, which is the standard thing you'd expect, where cameras move from place to place. And kind of, so I'll leave it on cinematic for a minute. And some of the video that was going when the stream was sort of waiting was actually using the cinematic cam. I just left it recording for 5 minutes on a Ferris wheel. But actually, considering it's all dynamic and procedurally generated, there's a real artistry to some of the camera shots you get. I had a lovely bit of video, which unfortunately I didn't manage to save. It happened before I started recording, which just perfectly framed the full moon against the coaster going through a loop. It was absolutely brilliant. So that's the cinematic camera, and then the other one you've got is the interest camera, which I believe, I'm not entirely sure what the difference between interest and cinematic is. I thought that interest showed you the faces of the people on the ride, because obviously how they're visually responding gives you an idea of how much they're enjoying it. So I think that's the third camera option. But clicking on it, there seems to be 3 options, and one of them just seems to be the same as the seat camera. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. And you can of course use middle mouse button to rotate around. And when you're in first person view, you can use middle mouse button to look left and right. So you can watch this terrified guy. And it's interesting that it's interesting that this first person look. One of the things I've put in the suggestions thread on the Planet Coaster forums, I'd really like to be able to use my Ed tracker to look around on these rides. I think that'd be brilliant. So I've sort of asked if they're going to be supporting, free track, or being able to bind a joystick to head look, so that something like the Ed tracker or Track IR can be used. Because I just think that'd be brilliant.
Well, it also brings us on to a topic that a few people have asked the questions of in the chat channel and before this on Twitter and stuff is, do we have any information yet from Frontier as to whether or not they're going to be supporting VR in this? And do you think that's a good idea, or do you think it's going to throw up a whole world of motion sickness problems?
Yeah, it's interesting. At the moment, the user interface is quite fiddly, and one of the things that my experience of Oculus Rift has suffered with, not just Oculus Rift, but anything I've tried, is actually resolution on tiny text and reading things. So if obviously this whole thing is floating in 3D in front of your face, there is always a question of where the menus actually exist. And whether whether those menus are kind of up to the task. Having said that, it is all driven completely from the mouse. I mean, it's not, even though the keyboard shortcuts are really helpful, it isn't as dependent on keyboard shortcuts as, say, Elite Dangerous. So having it as a kind of one interface game makes it very suitable for the current generation of headsets. But let me just...
Sorry, Ben, did you want to comment on that point?
Go for it.
Well, you've also got to remember there are other controllers for editing things, especially in VR. The Vive comes with these wand controllers, and I've seen various demos of the Vive where they're placing objects in a 3D space with not a massive amount of tweaking. The interface could be maneuvered to support that interface instead of a mouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, these are all good points, but I mean, I think we might be, well, for me, missing the point slightly as to what you'd want to get out of it. So I don't think the idea of having virtual reality in a game like this would be to actually design the park. More, you'd have almost like a separate cinematic mode where you'd have virtual reality, you close the park down and go into movie mode or, first-person mode. So it just gave you a second set of options, no building required. Literally all you're doing in that VR mode is wandering around your park, getting on rides, riding the rides, and getting off, and then coming out of VR mode and going back into build mode. So keeping the two completely separate. Yeah, exactly. You walk around as a guest in your VR mode.
Yeah, so I've brought up this group of people because I just want to spend a moment just looking at some of the faces of these models. Because one of the things that struck me about this game, playing it yesterday, is just how unique each of the people look. Out of some there are some quite similar facial types in terms of the geometry of it. I mean, they're not all completely made out of unique DNA faces, but actually the level of customization they've got going on with things like facial hair, glasses, skin tone, all of these different things, they do look like, you don't look at that and think, well, that looks like a cookie cutter crowd. I mean, the worst thing you've got these three girls here who appear to be sort of basically dressed the same and basically look the same. But even within that, oh dear, what have I just done? Let's not do that, that's horrible. Even within that kind of, similarity in the pattern, you've actually got still quite a lot of nice variation. So let's just look at those three here.
And even those three, you could argue, if you were going to sort of suspend reality a bit, it could be like the T-birds out of Greece. It could be that they're all from the same fraternity. Or
I was going to say they're like a Japanese club or something. They've all worn exactly the same clothes, and in fact, they have got some sort of branded.
School things on.
So maybe that's deliberate. Maybe I'm doing Frontier a disservice. But again, we talk sometimes about how nice Elite Dangerous looks. Just look at how pretty this game is already.
Yeah,
I mean that's a really nice looking scene, and it's all completely immersion and all these sorts of things.
No, I absolutely agree with that. But let's just continue talking about the avatars for a little bit, because I think it brings us on quite nicely to the pricing model that Frontier Developments are doing for this game. Because one of the added extras that they've got for this, I think, is quite clever, and that's clever on a couple of levels. So they've got the opportunity for £10, you can get what's called a VIP ticket, and that allows you, when they release the character avatar creator, to create your own avatar to not only have walking around your park, but also your avatar would wander off and visit other parks around the globe and around the internet and stuff. Or for £40 you can get a group VIP ticket, which means you can design up to 6 people and name your group. So in my case, if I wanted to design my family with some little folks and my missus and my brother and stuff, they could then name that as the Forrester family, and send that wandering around my park, or send it out into the world to visit other people's parks. Or if we wanted to do a Lave radio crew, as long as they get the tools right, so we can design it so we have a fair facsimile of all of us, we can send back a group of people out into the world riding on other people's roller coasters and stuff. And I don't think £40 is a bit steep, I grant you, but I think the whole pay £10 and put yourself into a game, I think is a very, very sort of clever means of generating some revenue for that. Would you not agree?
I definitely agree. I think but we also want to maybe wear our orange Sidewinder T-shirts or something like that as well.
Yeah.
And I could see it's the kind of thing you could almost give somebody as a birthday present.
Yeah.
Here's a birthday present, and now you're in a video game. Just what you always wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, because I'm gonna now start building a whole load of stuff. I'm aware that we're an hour into the stream, and all we've looked at is the loading screen and one ride. One of the things that this alpha is not. Let me flip it around and start very positively. This is, again, from Frontier. This is an incredibly polished alpha. If anyone remembers what the first ever loading up of Elite Dangerous was like, it was amazingly slick for an alpha. This is amazingly slick. And I'm going to continue to have a lot of fun with this tonight, but I just want to caveat something at the moment. At the moment, it's not a game. I mean, people could look at this and think, wow, why does it still have 6 months kind of development left on it? But actually, at the moment, there is no economy. This is basically a huge sandbox toolkit that allows you to build a theme park. There is no sense of challenge to it other than the artistic challenge, and there is no sense of resource constraint. So I can build the biggest coaster. I could build one giant coaster that filled this entire park, all before opening, and I wouldn't have to worry about how much the track costs, how much the maintenance costs. And you do occasionally see odd things within the game that are placeholders for kind of money and price. But like I say, at the moment there isn't that kind of challenge of of playing it as a game. It is basically just an editor. Not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that there is still an awful lot of gameplay from the challenge sense that needs to be put in place, I think.
I would actually like there to be the sandbox at least available to us in the real game as well. So yeah, sure, if you want to play it where in career mode or whatever you want to call it, where you've got to get your money to build your ride and you start off with a loan, say, and you've got to make it back, and yeah, you can go through all that and you can add that challenge, but sometimes you just want to create crazy roller coasters.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's certainly one of the things. It was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Looking at what's already there, Chris, how long? Do we think that the building blocks in here are sufficient enough? Are advanced enough for the likes of those people that love Lego or maybe love Minecraft to really sort of get creative in this and do things like how long is it going to be until we see the first version of the Starship Enterprise as the main sort of thing that roller coasters go up and down and around?
Day one, absolutely day one. I'm just gonna put some nice little lights in here.
So you think it's polished enough to do that? The modular system. You think it's got enough, enough depth in the system to be able to do that sort of level of creativity?
Yeah, let me come on to some of that then. Let me build something, and you can see exactly the sorts of things. So I've just basically all I've done there is I've taken the default roller coaster entrance for this ride. I've stuck a sign on it which is called 360-degree power, and I've added a couple of uplights to the to the entrance, because one of the things you'll notice when this game goes into the night aspect of the cycle, suddenly you realise your entire park is completely unlit. And it's particularly hard because when they're showing the streams, obviously they can play around with the
day and night cycle,
and they can just fix it. Whereas actually, when you're playing it as an end user and you're having to carry on building throughout the night, you suddenly realise it's actually really hard to build buildings in the dark. I guess that's why
you do know that you can pause your game.
What, while you're building?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. You can also fast forward if night's becoming a bit boring. You can speed it up. So let's build. Do you know what? Do you want? We were talking about this. Do you want an enterprise? Should we see if we can do an enterprise? I don't think we can actually do an enterprise.
Let's leave you to create that. And Ben, Have you got the various different pricing options of how people can get involved in this game if they want to jump onto the alpha side? What's the various pricing options that Frontier Developments are throwing up?
Have you written it down anywhere, and then I can tell you? Otherwise, you can give me 30 seconds notice. Okay, going totally and utterly by memory, seeing as I don't have it up in front of me, you can get the real game, like when it gets released in Q3 of this year, isn't it? So we've got another 6 months left. I think that's £20. Please don't ask me for the dollar conversion rates. Then you can get into the early bird, which is what we're currently playing, which is £50. Or you can upgrade from your current, if you've already pre-ordered the full version, that's for £20. You can upgrade to early bird for another 30, I believe. Then I know there are other things like there's the Coast Ahead Club, which I think will give you T-shirts and access to special areas of the forum, which I think is £50 as well, if I remember correctly. And there's other DLC effectively that you can add on as well, but I don't know the pricing of that, I'm afraid.
So yeah, so the DLC, there's some really nice sort of little bits of DLC. So you can get a Planet Coaster VIP staff pass. This is coming in at a wonderful £100. You'll be a permanent role as a member of the Coaster Park staff, in-game staff. I think I should possibly find £100 so I can get my alter ego second technician. Should be a mechanic in the park. So if I wanted to do that, then that would be £100. You can also
that would not
pay.
fill people with confidence.
You could also pay £500 and get a Planet Coaster VIP Park Foundation Stone, which is going to have your name etched into the stone at the entrance of every single coaster park on Planet Coaster. £500 is expensive. That, and obviously you've got the VIP group ticket, which allows you to create your own group with the avatars, and your £10 VIP single ticket as well is in there. So go and check it out. If you do a search for Frontier and have a look at their store, they're all listed there. But yeah, interesting as well, for the Coast Ahead Club, you do get a T-shirt and you do get a quite a nice little wristband, as if you were actually attending a park, as a freebie in with that. So lots of different options. I think certainly for the one that you're playing, Chris, I take it you got the alpha package, which was what, £50?
Yeah. And actually, yeah, and because Frontier is so lovely, they actually sent me the 10% discount for being an Elite Dangerous Kickstarter backer. They sent it to me like 3 days after I ordered the alpha. So I wrote to them and I said, "Oh, guys," and they actually refunded me the difference, which was really nice of them.
Oh, nice.
And then what was good about that, later on, they actually went off and added in the ability to upgrade your package anyway. So I went off and I took advantage of that, thankfully.
So what I want to say is, anyone that's been obviously watching the stream will have seen this, but I've basically just created a really simple little building which looks, I wouldn't say it's aesthetically pleasing. I'm not totally sure that roof actually matches the walls. But actually it's quite a nice little construction, and I've done it in very little or no time. And you'll see that all those pieces have just snapped together. The corners of the building were individual pieces, the walls were individual pieces, the roof is made up of 4 pieces, the sign, is an extra little piece. And it's basically the whole system kind of works, that way. It's very easy to just slot stuff together and just, make something quite quickly, and I think that's one of the real strengths with this editor, is that it's very quick to get things. It's very quick to get things made. So if I now want to, I've made a little hat shop open. Let's see if, having opened the hat shop, are there people wearing hats? You do start to see people wearing hats once you've opened a hat shop. Maybe people don't care enough. Has anyone actually gone up to the counter? I'm not sure. Someone said in chat the roof should be a hat. You know what? If I was really thinking creatively, the roof should have been a hat. I can go and change that, actually. I was having fun at this.
So do you need to assign that as a particular hat style? So I saw in the stream earlier on that they created a toilet, and
Yes.
it was all modular. So he created a foundation, then built up the walls, and then stuck a toilet sign on the outside. Now, is that as much as you need to do to make that a toilet, or do you have to actually go in there and put urinals in there, or
Yeah,
anything else? Or is...
Yeah, what's interesting is there's like a functional block. So when you go into the facilities tab, there's all this row of buildings. There's basically actually only 4 buildings. There's 12 in here because it gives you one with a sandstone fascia, one with a basic render fascia, and one with like a kind of white modern, sort of some sort of weird modern material. And basically what these buildings are is the core functionality. So the core functionality of a drink shop is this one particular unit which you attach to your path and which you can then decorate to your heart's content. So if I can treat an entire row of shops as a single building, so I'm just going to do that. So let's not do that. Let's actually make it a separate building because I want to play with something later. So let's put down it. So basically, having laid this down, if you now look at my feed, you'll see that I've created a drinks shop, and it's completely unedited, but it works as a shop. People can walk up to the counter, they can start buying drinks. You can actually now, if I come out of the editor for this building, I can click on a person, and I can now, in first person, watch them get served at the drinks counter, which is quite entertaining. Watch the guy doing his thing. There you go, that kid's happy, he's got a drink. I'm following him around, which is a bit weird. Yeah.
You'll get arrested for that kind of behaviour.
Absolutely. But that building now works, and essentially if I go back to this building and continue to edit it, what I'm really doing is decorating it with additional walls and whatever else you might want from it. So I can just, in a really simple way, like the equivalent of the Minecraft mud hut, I could just stick 4 walls around it and say, well, there you go, that's my building. And then there are all these other things, and it just becomes really about creative expression and just building something that is aesthetically pleasing to you and kind of fits in with the dynamic of what you want to do. But I want to just try something really crazy, because I was quite impressed on Frontier's stream that they did this, and I'm just going to try and reproduce it myself here. Having now made this building with these arches in, I believe this is going to be dangerous. I believe if I go to roller coaster, I really probably shouldn't do this. Let's put it somewhere over here. Let's give me a bit of warning. I'm going to try and see if I can run the track now through that building, because I don't think there's any reason why not.
Okay, but possibly not the station, which is what you're trying to put through there at the moment.
And that might not be quite enough clearance. But the point is, I've now built that drinks shop with an arch next to it, and there is absolutely no reason why I can't now run a roller coaster straight through the side of that building. I don't mean through the side of it, I mean through the arches.
Yeah, but have you got enough clearance?
I don't think I do have enough clearance, but my point is...
No, I think people are going to bang their heads straight on that.
No, but my point is, if I'd built this shop on a raised section of ground, or if I'd built it up slightly, this is exactly the sort of thing that you can do with this game. And this is where having such low-level building tools is really powerful, because there is nothing stopping me making a decorative building that my roller coaster drives through. I could theoretically, if I wanted to, build walls all the way around this roller coaster.
Yeah. But also, they were talking in their live stream about the fact that that's the sort of thing you have to do, because there is an element of the simulation that takes in your creativity. So people will like your rides and like your park better if it's decorated, if it's got scenery, if it's got interesting things like going through drink stands, or just different things that are slightly above the normal sort of templates. If you do those sort of things, you will be rewarded by your patrons actually showing more interest and showing more enjoyment out of these things.
Totally. And I'm just going to sit and kind of do some of these bits, because I want to demonstrate on the stream how quickly you can kind of decorate stuff and come up with quite nice aesthetic things. So just bear in mind how plain this looks now, and then we'll comment on it again in about 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and we'll see exactly what the kind of the difference is, and you'll be so yeah.
Okay, I mean, Ben, you've also got the alpha, and you've had a bit of time to play with it. What's been your initial sort of thoughts about the alpha build so far?
I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I might have been playing it till about 1 o'clock this morning, and I wasn't meaning to after last night's show. I was kind of tired, but I was like, I want to try one more thing to. I was polishing some of my rides up for when and if Chris shows my stuff on tonight's show. So I wanted to do a bit of polishing on that, and I just did that, and then the next thing I realised it was about 1 in the morning. So I'm loving it, and I'm not a massive City Builder fan. I haven't played City Builder since SimCity 2000 and things like that. So not even the 3000 stuff. I've not bought Skylines or anything like that. I didn't really play any of the earlier Roller Coaster Tycoons and things. So
yeah, you say that though, but I've seen some of the stuff that you've done in Fallout 4. There's definitely a builder inside you.
Oh god, I mean, I love Minecraft and building stuff in Minecraft and things like that. It's just I've never done it in this kind of thing, but I'm more into actually the sandboxy kind of stuff, which is why I do hope that. Sorry, I'm just watching Chris moving his cow around the screen. I'm more into the sandboxy kind of thing, so I like just placing my stuff and having fun with it, and maybe not worrying about the actual gamification of it.
Yeah, definitely, and I must admit I have yet to sort of take the plunge because I thought I might have I thought it was going to be an expensive month, so I haven't actually jumped onto the coaster bandwagon yet. But looking at the streams and watching you guys play over the last few days has sort of made me think that actually, yeah, there is definitely a place in my life for this game, and I'm thinking actually it's more along the lines of trying to get my young 4-year-old interested in a little bit of PC gaming, just because of this whole sort of sandbox, sort of Lego. Minecraft sort of idea about the idea that you can sort of have him sitting next to me telling me where he wants things, putting them there, and then this ability to jump straight into sort of first person mode and actually play on the theme park that we've created together. So I think that I'm going to have a go with that and see whether or not it's something, some quality father and son time. But I think this game sort of lends itself to that particular sort of group building aspect.
I completely agree, and I know that's something actually that I think Mad Dog's doing as well. So we've got Mad Dog and his cub are doing a very similar kind of thing. And I know when my son's down, and we're going to be I'm going to at least be introducing this to him tomorrow, and see what he thinks of it as well. And if it's something that he's interested in, then we might see what we can do.
So how old's your son?
My son's 9, or near enough 9.
He would be more than capable to sort of get to grips with the sort of the building tools of this. I'm just wondering at what age, it's simple, it's intuitive for us to use. I'm just wondering at what age a child would be able to sort of pick this up and start getting involved with it.
Well, my son plays Minecraft massively, far more than I do nowadays, and far more in depth than I ever did as well. So and he's been playing it for like 2-3 years, I'd say now. Okay. So I don't think. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised by how quickly even a younger child gets it.
Interesting. Well, we'll certainly see how long it takes before he's sort of taking the mouse and keyboard off his dad and pushing me out to pasture, as it were, as he creates the world's most stunning roller coasters. Probably around. I was going to say around the Enterprise, but he's yet to watch any Star Trek, so it's probably more about something like Paw Patrol or something equally as daft.
My younger loves Paw Patrol. Actually, hey, they've got a great big tower, don't they? And they all go around.
Yes, they do.
I'm sure. Yes, I might have watched it as well. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's very much a one more thing kind of.
Yeah, time sink.
Yeah, it's, my only upset, as it were, is that at the moment I can't do any. I've now got all my rides that are all the flat rides in the game in my park, and I'm currently maxed out at about 3,000 visitors.
Okay.
And now I'm thinking, okay, what do I want to do next? So I've got a couple of roller coasters in there. My second roller coaster is a lot less vomit-inducing, shall we say, than my first one, I think. But I've not done a lot of placing of trees yet, or I've made a hamburger, and I think that's about as extreme as I've gotten so far.
Okay, and that's maybe
a pirate ship.
That's maybe one of the other things I should have asked at the beginning of the stream, which is obviously we've got a few coasters in there. We've got through a few shops. Are there any other rides that you can actually get involved with in the alpha? Are there, like Wurlitzers or the teacups or any other particular types of ride that you can put in your park?
One job at a time.
A whole load of great rides. Great rides.
I'm getting to them. Okay, well let's just take stock then for a moment of what I've been doing. I've basically just been sitting here for a few minutes, just kind of throwing decorations in, and as you can see, I am not the prettiest landscape designer in the world, but I have been able to throw together what is actually, very quickly a very busy scene. But if we're talking about other rides now, I will show you some other rides, because at the moment these people are coming into my park. They're basically buying a drink and a hat and going on a roller coaster. That's pretty boring, isn't it? So let's let me just have a look at some of the other ride scenes. I've only got about half an hour left. Let's have a look. So rides, we have got a thing called the Forge. I'm going to put this in because this is genuinely terrifying. So again, like the other rides, this one is obviously doesn't involve as much construction as the roller coaster. This is just something that you pick a spot for it, you stick on your entrance, you stick on your exit, you add your queue to the entrance, and I'm wondering actually if I made it a bit short, and then you stick in your ticket booth. There we go. And it's currently closed. It's closed because I haven't finished building it. Where's the... I need a path.
So it looks like you've got about 13 sort of standalone rides that you can drop into your park, as well as building the roller coasters around them, which isn't too bad actually. I mean, you can, if sandboxing a theme park was your thing, you could certainly have a lot of fun with the elements that are currently in the first alpha.
Absolutely. Let's put, there you go. This is what I did yesterday. This is the Ferris wheel. Ferris wheel's always quite nice. And actually, yeah, it's very. Go for it.
I'd love to ride most of these rides as well. I mean, some of these look absolutely awesome. And even that Ferris wheel, because they've got like there's two kinds of carriage in it. You've got the one on the outer ring, which is just like a normal Ferris wheel. And then there's one on the inner ring, which basically rotates around and wobbles and jingles and jangles and looks kind of terrifying, to be honest.
Absolutely. So there you go. There's an extra couple of rides open, and that's all joined up quite neatly. And you can actually see, now we've gone to night, you can see that when I was building this little area of shops, I included some illumination. So the hat shop has got a little row of box lights over it. This one here's got a single box light and a couple of cans just illuminating the main sign. And actually, it's pretty... let's just see what this person sees. That is not bad for kind of 10 minutes work. And you can see it did seem to be...
Yeah, watching you do it, it seemed to be really, really straightforward to just sort of pick up and drop and grab some more stuff and pick up and drop. And you very quickly sort of populated that scene.
Yeah.
and made it okay. So it's not the prettiest, but it passes. You could probably see a normal theme park that looks very similar to that in the real world. It's not
Absolutely.
standing out as being something that you've done in 5 minutes.
No, quite. I saw some of the hat. There you go. This person's been to the hat shop. Yay! So there we go. Oh, this person also really wants the toilet.
Are they dancing around, are they?
Yeah, possibly because I haven't actually built any yet.
I spent most of my lunch hour today actually just watching a guest, following them around my park. And it's amazingly fascinating just starting on somebody and watching them walk through the gate and then running round all the different places looking so excited, or getting lost as some of mine were doing. But what surprised me so much was the number of people who show up to my park and the very, very first thing that they need is the toilet and the burger.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly right. I mean, they could have been on a very long car journey. You don't know. It might have been leftover breakfast, and they arrive at lunchtime. They need a wee, and they need some food. I think that's perfectly rational.
It seems rational to me. Another thing that surprises me about the game is how it seems to go 24/7. I don't.
Yeah,
know
there's no closures.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how many theme parks are actually open at 2 a.m. But maybe in America some are. I have no idea.
I'm sure there must be some 24-hour theme parks. I'm sure we're probably not the first people to come across that idea.
I'm sure we're not. But...
Yeah.
So how long does each stage of the alpha run? Have they told us? Is it going to be a few weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months?
As long as this is, I think.
Yeah. I just want to point out there's one nice little detail here that kind of really speaks to the mindset that's gone behind actually creating these parks. One of the things I've stuck on the back of this building is an air conditioning unit. Now, there is absolutely no reason to place an air conditioning unit on a building in this game. As far as I know, heat management is not going to be a feature of things like the shops and buildings in Planet Coaster. But actually, it's entirely satisfying to me to feel that I've placed this air conditioning unit on the back of a building, hidden behind some bushes. None of my park guests theoretically might ever see it, but I kind of know it's there, and I know that it makes my building feel more like a realistic building. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I would actually. Okay. I've got a path here that customers will come down where they will see that air conditioning unit, and I'm now thinking what I want to do is build something in front of it so they can't see it.
Oh dear, I can just see this taking so much of your time off you. I'm not sure we're ever going to get another series of Escape Velocity finished, are we?
Oh no, lovely. There you go. See, like I can now place this down. I've got a huge neon sign that says Planet Coaster. I'm going to put that in the way now. So there you go. Now no one can see my air conditioning unit.
So, I mean, just actually thinking about the various sort of creativity things that you could possibly do about this. You were talking earlier on about having some really nice sort of cinematic videos that were captured sort of automatically from this. I remember the fantastic series that you did on Animal Crossing in terms of Animal Crossing Noir.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be potential here to do some sort of theme park noir?
You can bet my brain is going to be thinking about it. I don't know until I've seen a bit more, because it's a little bit like, I guess, like The Sims in a sense of just what you can get them to do that adequately. Are you talking about machinima, or are you talking about just writing a series?
No, I'm talking about machinima.
Yeah, if you talk about machinima, it really does depend what you can kind of get the characters to do, and how you can kind of effectively make it look like they're acting for you. Because there was a series that was done by the people that did Red vs. Blue called The Strangerhood, and it was basically a machinima series done in, I think, The Sims 3. And they managed to get some pretty good results out of it. And I don't know, until we've got a little bit more kind of control, or a bit more of the simulation, I don't know necessarily what it would be possible to make it look like people are doing. I mean, they're quite animated as they walk along, but it's a slightly different prospect to something like The Sims, because The Sims, you have like a set 7 people that kind of live in a house, whereas this, keeping track of the same characters throughout the park is actually going to be not impossible, but quite difficult.
We've got a question in the chat room about whether or not we can actually speed up that Ferris wheel to insane proportions.
Can you edit the ride? Let's have a look. It just says ride management coming soon. So I'm guessing you can.
Well, so that also leads me on to another thing, which I have to say was one of my pet hates of the roller coaster series. It was funny to begin with, and then became an absolute pain in the backside. And that was the amount of puke that was ending up all over my pathways, and the amount of people I had to employ to, sweep it all up. And they never did a decent job, at least, of getting on top of all the puke that seemed to be around the park. Now I know the puke's there because I don't design good rides, but that just became a grind and a ball ache. So I'm wondering if that's going to be an element in this game, or whether or not there'll be some sort of a better way of getting that message across.
I have seen guests holding their hands to their mouths as if they want to be sick, but without the carrot chunks.
Excellent. You see, I'm happy with that. I'm happy not to have to employ a guy with a mop and a sweeping brush. Or in the case of my last park, 50 of the guys with mops and sweeping brushes.
So with that, were you able to design and customize your flat rides too then, yeah?
With Roller Coaster Tycoon 3?
Yeah.
Some of them, I think, but most of them were just sort of standard stamped down rides.
Same as what we've got here then?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'm just thinking, what kind of manipulation could we do to these rides? Because, these look fairly locked in, apart from spinning it up to ludicrous speed and spinning off into the sunset. I'm wondering what other kind of things we could do.
Yeah, maybe ride duration. If you wanted sort of value for money, the longer the ride goes on, the more people think it's value for money. But then obviously you've got to weigh up the queue time. I'm waiting too long for this ride. There's all sorts of things that you can do within the management style of it, and it'd be interesting actually to see how they're going to cope with that. I mean, one of the things I used to sort of like was all the various sort of things like adding salt into the chips to make people thirsty, so they bought more of your drinks. But maybe in this day and age there should be a few elements or a few different levels of simulation. So maybe you want Roller Coaster Light, where you get access to some of that manipulation of tweaks and stuff, or simulation medium, where you can set the prices, or full on simulation where you set the amount of salt that you put on the chips and everything else. Because I'm not sure in this day and age whether everybody wants to go into that level of simulation. Some people, as you said, Ben, might just want to have the sandbox level, no simulation at all in terms of all the financial management side of things. Do you reckon they'll bring that level of variation into the game?
I don't think they will. I think it'll be it might be a binary option, like here's sandbox only, and maybe there's no gamification side of it, or here is the full-on sim, and you're managing money, you're managing cleaning up puke, you're managing obviously the flow of your guests, how happy everyone is, how happy your staff are is something that we know is going to be a thing. Or at least I'm assuming it's going to be a thing, because we've seen those animations of a happy pirate king and an upset one, haven't we?
Yeah, well, or in Chris's Park's case, those people that are swelteringly hot in their hat stands, or not swelteringly hot in their hat stands.
Oh, and that's going to affect their happiness, I'd assume.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about the morale.
And obviously we've got, it's very interesting how much people need the toilet and things like that.
I know it's becoming one of my most popular facilities. I've just put it in.
Yeah, I wound up in a really bizarre situation actually the other night, where it looked like a queue of maybe 100 of people queuing up at one of my chief beefs, and I was like, oh, that's a bit busy. I better shove in another one. So I made just a chief beef shop, and maybe about 10 people went to it. It was literally on the other side of the path, so it couldn't be, well, that's a shit location, we're not going to go to it. It's just everybody was queuing up at one of them, and they just all seemed to ignore my other one. And I can't think why. But I think it might have been a bug in the game. Maybe that's the only thing, because it did clear itself up when I reset the game and came out and came back in again.
Well, as you mentioned it there, what about bugs in the alpha? Obviously, the wonderful thing about the alpha, it does look very slick, but at the same time, it is an alpha, so the whole point is that we feed the bugs back to Frontier, who are obviously going to squash them as quickly as possible. Has there been any sort of major glitches in this one, Jarvis, Ben?
I had one freeze crash. That's it. It's actually incredibly stable. I don't really know how else to say that. It's considering the amount of features that are in here, it is just very, very, very slick and very polished. I'm hoping it's not going to be like Elite again, where Alpha 1 is amazingly polished and Alpha 2 is just really impossible to use.
Yeah, I do remember those days all too well.
Yeah. I had issues with the launch pad. The game was about an hour and a half, 2 hours before I was actually able to download and play it yesterday. So, and even then, I wound up actually having to get a copy of somebody else's XML file, which is the thing that is basically used to tell the launcher what things to download. And then once I had that, then I had to go off and manually download everything, that was a bit of a pain in the butt. But I know Frontier released 2 or 3 different versions of the launcher yesterday itself. So hopefully that got all that kind of stuff rectified. The actual game itself, I think, has been pretty rock solid. The only iffy thing for me has been the camera positioning.
Yeah, I think it's hard to understand the camera sometimes. I'm just for the benefit of people watching the Twitch, I'm just laying down some of the random objects. There's quite a lot in here from the pirate theme. I'm pretty sure that's a Thargoid. No, but it's interesting the way that these rides are kind of designed in a realistic way, because this is all the realistic machinery that Frontier have employed to feel that this is a realistic object. But actually, as it stands, that having that as a thing doesn't make any sense. But if you load in the park that you get as part of the alpha called Release the Kraken or something like that, they have built this animatronic beast into a cave, so it does look like it's jumping up out of the ground and scaring people.
Oh, brilliant.
But you have to do that work of building it into the scenery and constructing a facility around it. It's not just a thing you can lay and say, hey, look at this. It does make you kind of work for the consistency of your park.
And whilst we're talking about the Kraken, somebody went off and tried making a guest squasher with the Kraken, where they went off and loaded the Kraken and its base in the middle of one of the paths, and true to the game's will kill no guest thing, the guest just seemed to basically stop walking, and then they'd start again once it lifted up, but they didn't get squished, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I think everybody wants to seem to kill their guests, from what I've been seeing after talking to people. It's like everyone's looking for the most creative way to kill somebody.
Yeah, I'd have to say, I'm just watching the stream now, Chris, and you have just seamlessly placed a full-on pirate ship into the struts of one of your roller coaster, and the simulation, the game has literally just taken care of everything. So in terms of the stands, the poles that hold up the struts and everything else, because you dropped that pirate ship on them, they've literally just warped themselves into the pirate ship and done it so seamlessly. Yes. It looks like it was always built like that. I think that's just perfect, it's so seamless. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So,
have you gone and looked at the nuts and bolts on any of these things? Just talking about the attention to detail.
I have a little bit.
Just sort of things that you wouldn't see, because it's like, I can't believe, even to the extent there's like little scrapes and things like that on bolts. And on the underside of the pirate ship ride, where the wheels push the pirate ship, that area of paint is all worn down and everything like that. Yeah, and I think that's just absolutely phenomenal.
No, totally. I'm trying to see. It's a shame actually, because I've picked this coaster you can't see it. But if you get the one that looks like the kind of rocket-shaped one, the deformation on the plastic, the kind of bonnet of the truck, is really cool. It's really nicely done. What I just want to do while we've got a little bit of time, we haven't got much time, is I want to try and load in Ben's save, because obviously they're quite keen on the game being able to share content between people, and supposedly you can share your save game between people, in the absence of a kind of automated system at the moment.
Yeah, and for everybody else, this is something we haven't tried before. We're doing this completely utterly unprepared, so who knows what's going to actually happen.
I might even share my desktop so you can see what I'm actually doing. So let's exit to main menu. If there's nothing embarrassing on my desktop. So where do I have to put this save of yours then, Ben, in order to import it? Do you remember where they said?
Yes, it goes in your C drive. I don't know if you've got a C and a D drive, but on your C drive, in your default home directory, there's a saved games folder. No,
that's Elite Dangerous.
And inside that saved games folder, you'll see you need to. Oh, it's not just the data. It's the whole folder that I gave you, Chris. So the whole. Yeah, it's not just that file. You need the entire thing.
Darn it. That's less ideal.
Okay, whilst you guys are currently sort of sifting through that,
it's nothing local. It's just literally in your home directory. So in Christopher.
Oh, really?
So I was going to say that there seems to be a conversation going on in the chat now about whether or not Frontier should or should not shy away from the idea of throwing people off coasters. Now, obviously, it's been mentioned about the whole Alton Tower incident, and the possibility of this turning into a sort of a Daily Mail story and bad publicity for Frontier. I can understand why they would move away from it and not have it in the game, but do you guys think it sort of takes an element of fun out of it? I mean, I know when we spoke to Johnny Watts when we went down to Frontier recently, he was saying that even in Roller Coaster Tycoon, nobody died. When they got thrown off the roller coasters, they all just seemed to pick themselves back up again and brush themselves down and then wander back to the nearest path. So do you think they could possibly incorporate that element of sort of cartoony sort of violence and get around the whole Alton Towers Daily Mail bad publicity idea?
I would have it as a cheat code again, actually. A bit like how we're enabling our thing. I'd enable it as a cheat code to enable death or something like that. Just so you at least have to make a conscious decision to go and do it. Is that my most recent one, Chris, or is that an older one? Because I saw it was zipped up there.
I just downloaded the whole folder, and Google Drive did it as a zip. So I'm looking at Ben's Planet. This was 10:25 a.m.
That looks about right.
Okay, if this is a cock, you're in so much trouble.
I should have done that. Oh well.
But yeah, it's so this looks like it's working. It hasn't.
So is this something that you guys have figured out yourselves? Is this something that Frontier has said, if you want to share parks in the current alpha, this is how you do it? Or is it something the community have figured out?
Something Frontier said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on Frontier's Planet Coaster site, they've got everything you need to know about Planet Coaster, and one of the things they say is if you take this entire folder, give it to a mate, then you can share things that way until we actually get proper sharing in the game.
Well, this is taking a really long time to load, so I'm a bit concerned that it's not actually working.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned as well. I don't know how long it'll take. It only takes a few seconds to load for me, but I know.
I don't know. I think it might be. I think it might be because they've obviously seen Chris's attempt at his last park and thinks he might just need to spend a little bit more time on the loading screen that's giving all the helpful hints on how to build a park properly.
Yeah, I'm just a bit...
There you go. You can adjust the camera settings in the settings menu. There you go. That is the answer to the problems with the camera.
Yeah, all true.
Whilst this is loaded, just in case it doesn't work, is there anything you two want to cover off before we wrap up the stream? Because obviously time is running out. I just want to make sure we cover everything you guys wanted to cover off.
No, I mean, I think obviously more data is helpful. I think in terms of phase 1 of this alpha, I think it's pretty much demonstrated that everything does what it's meant to do, other than obviously this sharing of save files, which appears to have actually crashed Planet Coaster. Should we see if I can? I'm really not sure what's going on here. I might need to.
Yeah, I don't see why it should take this long.
I might need to combat log it.
Combat logging in Planet Coaster. You get kicked out of the game for that kind of behaviour,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. But yeah, so it might be that this sharing of saves thing doesn't quite work. But I mean, I think obviously can't speak for them, but I think theoretically phase 1 could be really short if everyone finds it works, it does everything. I think it is really nice and fun at the moment to just create stuff, and like I say, from my point of view, what's actually missing is because I'm more of a gaming person than I am a sit and build kind of person. It's lacking the gaming loops that kind of make it satisfying. But I mean, we remember, for those of us that were part of the Elite Dangerous Alpha, we remember how you started off with just a ship you could fly around, and then the gameplay loop suddenly appeared when they added 3 systems you could jump between, and suddenly it was possible to pick up cargo and sell it, and actually then very suddenly you've actually got a simulation there and you've got a game. So I don't know enough about creating these kinds of management games to know how complicated it is to actually build the economy and build the challenge. I don't think this is going to work.
No, I think it's something we might want to take offline.
Ah, well.
Here's an idea. Oh well.
Unless, of course, my own load doesn't come back, in which case the thing is clearly just broken.
That's always possible.
But yeah, no. But I'm absolutely loving it. I'm more than happy about the fact that I signed into the alpha, because I nearly didn't. I was just going to wait for the game to come out, but to be honest, partly the videos and stuff that Frontier have produced about it just looked really engaging. And I think when me and Fozza went and actually visited Frontier Developments, and Johnny Watts kind of sat us down in front of basically what we're playing now, that kind of really sold it to me. I saw it and just thought, wow, this is something I really want to play, and I really want to play now. I mean, obviously Frontier can't kind of individually sell it user to user. That's a very inefficient way of selling a game. Trust me, it's a very inefficient way of selling audio drama too. And yeah, it's really not coming back. So I don't think it's necessarily anything to do with Ben's save. I think I may have broken something.
You need to turn it off and on again, mate.
Yeah, possibly. So yeah, it's just a great game, and I think definitely more people need to pay more attention to it, because it's pretty cool. I'm going to delete that just in case that's a problem. And yeah, I think we're going to be doing more about this soon. I'm liking this a lot.
Great stuff. Well, do you want to call that it for the show then? Do you want to wrap that up, or is there anything else you want to touch on before we go?
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Perfect. Okay, well, that's it for our first ever episode of Alt Lave. Thank you very much to everybody that's joined us live in the chat channel. Thank you very much to Ben, to Chris for coming on and doing such a great streaming episode. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can. You can email info@laveradio.com, Facebook.com/laveradio. We are at Lave Radio on Twitter. Or if you want, you can join the Discord chat channel by going to tinyurl.com/laveradio. Our TeamSpeak server is laveradio.teamspeak3.com, And if you want to hear our Elite Dangerous show, that is Lave Radio, and it's recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30 and streamed out on laveradio.com/live. Thanks again for joining us for this first episode of Alt Lave. Until next time, fly safe.